The growing strength of abolitionism, including John Brown. The willingness of some on both sides of the debate over slavery to pursue armed violence had been shown during the Bleeding Kansas crisis of 1854–58. Later in the 1850s, feelings hardened. One veteran of that period of raid and counter-raid began to lay plans to start a slave uprising, something which had long been a nightmare for the white South. Harper's Ferry in the state of Virginia housed a federal arsenal and armory, making and storing U.S. Army weapons. It has been estimated that 100,000 rifles and muskets were stored there. Abolitionist John Brown, who had taken part in the Kansas violence and was a friend of Frederick Douglass, formed a plan to take control of the armory, lead a slave revolt, arm the slaves, and overthrow slave power. Douglass viewed the plan as a suicide mission doomed to failure, and refused to take part or endorse it. Nonetheless, with a force of 21 men, Brown seized the armory, but no slave rebellion followed. Within 2 days, local militia and federal troops, led by Robert E. Lee, later the leader of the Confederate armies in the Civil War, regained control of town. 10 of Brown's men died along with 7 civilians. Brown himself was injured. He was put on trial, found guilty of treason, and sentenced to death along with 6 of his fellow conspirators. Shortly before he was hanged for treason in December 1859, he wrote, "I, John Brown, am now quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away but with blood. I had, as I now think vainly, flattered myself that without very much bloodshed it might be done." The failure of the Harper's Ferry raid suggested that slavery was well established and still well supported in the South, and that slave rebellions were unlikely. It showed the 59-year-old Brown to be a romantic idealist, but not a revolutionary leader. Yet the raid and its leader had a great impact on U.S. politics. In the North, Brown became a martyred hero to many, both black and white. His reputation residentialed less with the physical force he used at Harper's Ferry and more with the moral courage he showed in attempting a revolt than facing imprisonment, trial, and death. He sacrificed his life for his beliefs which many Northerners saw as admirable. The Republican leaders, Lincoln and William H. Seward, were more cautious, distanced themselves from Brown's actions and arguments. Seward was a former Whig and a U.S. Senator from New York. He had declared himself in favor of emancipation and was supportive of immigrants and Catholics, thus earning the hostility of the American Party. In October 1858, Seward made a speech in which he argued that America faced an irrepressible conflict between opposing and enduring forces, and it means that the United States must and will, sooner or later, become either a slaveholding nation or entirely a free labor nation. He saw the conflict in peaceful, political terms as an argument between the Democratic and Republican parties. His speech was similar in argument to Lincoln's A House Divided made earlier that year. Democrats, North and South, argued there was a direct link between Seward's inflammatory language and the raid on Harper's Ferry. He was seen by many, especially in the South, as inspiring Brown to action, so Seward was advised to tread carefully on the issue of Brown. His speech received a good deal of attention, as he was expected to be the Republican Party's presidential candidate in 1860. The connection between Seward and Harper's Ferry seemed stronger when it was revealed that John Brown had received sympathy and support from a New England group which was dubbed the Secret Six, all of them keen abolitionists. Finally, the fact that Brown's raid was against Virginia, always part of the South, was said to show that the North's commitment to respect slavery where it already existed could not be trusted. Brown's raid failed, but it showed that abolitionism was a growing force in the land. Moreover, although Brown himself might have been an extremist, the existence of the Secret Six revealed that moderates were becoming increasingly willing to support violence. As with other crises, it drew attention to the divisions within the country. For politicians such as Lincoln, Douglas, Seward, and others, A significant question was whether these shifts in views would make the 1860 presidential election different from that of 1856 and, if so, in what ways.